Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our 12th day of Bhakti Vaibhava seminar on Srimad Bhagavatam, on the second canto of the Bhagavatam. And today we are starting chapter 5, which is titled The Cause of All Causes. Let's begin though by chanting our prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Pramanityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchkalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so here we go, devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 5, The Cause of All Causes. So there are 4 sections here. And the first one is from verse 1 to verse 8. And we've titled it, Narada Muni Questions Lord Brahma. Yeah. Narada Muni questions Lord Brahma. Then second section is from verse 9 to verse 20, and that is Brahma begins his response to Narada, responding to the questions which have just been asked. So Narada begins his response to Narada, verse 9 to verse 20. Third section, from verse 21 to verse 34, Lord Brahma describes the process of creation. 21 to 34, Lord Brahma describes the process of creation. And then the fourth and last section, Lord Brahma's description of the universal form, from verse 35 to verse 42. Brahma's description of the universal form, 35 to 42. Okay, so let's go through the first section. Narada Muni questions Lord Brahma, verse 1 to verse 8. So, as usual, we'll just go through the verses to start off with. Shri Narada Muni asked Brahmaji, O chief amongst the demigods, O firstborn living entity, I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please tell me that transcendental knowledge which specifically directs one to the truth of the individual soul and the super soul. Verse 2. My dear Father, please describe factually the symptoms of this manifest world. What is its background? How is it created? How is it conserved? And under whose control is all this being done? Verse 3, my dear Father, all this is known to you scientifically, because whatever was created in the past, whatever will be created in the future, or whatever is being created at present, as well as everything within the universe, is within your grip, just like a walnut. Verse 4. My dear Father, what is the source of your knowledge? Under whose protection are you standing? And under whom are you working? What is your real position? Do you alone create all entities with material elements by your personal energy? So Narada's really getting into it. Verse 5, as the spider very easily creates the network of its cobweb and manifests its power of creation without being defeated by others, so also you yourself, by employment of your self-sufficient energy, create without any other's help. Verse 6, whatever we can understand by the nomenclature, characteristics and features of a particular thing, superior, inferior, or equal, eternal, or temporary, is not created from any source other than that of your lordship, thou so great. At least it seems like that. So Narada Muni, trying to clarify. 7, yet we are moved to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you when we think of your great austerities in perfect discipline, although your good self is so powerful in the matter of creation. And verse 8, last verse in the section. My dear Father, you know everything, and you are the controller of all. Therefore, may all that I've inquired from you be kindly instructed to me, so that I may be able to understand it as your student. Okay, so here we are, devotees. Let's go through the verses and purports now in more detail. Section is Narada Muni questions Lord Brahma, verse 1 to verse 8. So verse 1, Sri Narada Muni asked Brahmaji, O chief amongst the demigods, O firstborn living entity, I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please tell me that transcendental knowledge which specifically directs one to the truth of the individual soul and the supersoul. Okay, so there's just one paragraph here of purport, and Srila Prabhupada begins by confirming the perfection of the Parampara system. Yes, you can't really go wrong when there's a chain of very honest people who know the truth and who really want to give others the truth. So anyway, in the previous chapter, it explained how Brahma received knowledge from the Lord and then imparted it to Narada. And Narada asked for that, Brahma spoke it. So in other words, asking for knowledge from the right person and getting it properly, that's parampara. And that's what's recommended in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 2. Evam parampara praptam ibam rajashayo vidu. Krishna says that the knowledge which he had given to Vivasvan and, then to Ikshvaku Manu, like that it was passed on through that line of saintly kings, Imam Rajashayo Vidu, through that line of Raja Rishis. Right. So therefore, one has to approach an authorized person, a spiritual master, and approach not in a challenging way, but by surrender, inquiries, and service. This is better than the system of knowledge for money. That's what we've got, in the universities and just everywhere. Knowledge for money. Yeah. So a spiritual master, interesting point, from the line of Brahma and Narada, doesn't ask for money. Interesting. Verse 2, my dear Father, please describe factually the symptoms of this manifest world. What is its background? How is it created? How is it conserved? And under whose control is all this being done? Yeah. So first paragraph, fairly short. Narada's inquiring on the basis of cause and effect. What is tangible, objective, at least to start off with. Whereas for the atheists, they just theorize and it's all very vague. Yeah. So therefore this world and the spirit souls within it are not explained by the atheists with their theories. Rather, they have so many different theories. Excuse me. And it's very confusing because they're very confused. So Narada says, please describe factually. He wants to know the facts of creation in truth. He doesn't want to know any theories. Right, so then we go on to the second paragraph, and Prabhupada makes an interesting point that in order to understand, to get transcendental knowledge of the soul and the super soul, it includes knowledge of this world and its creation. That's an interesting point. So Prabhupada then goes on that within this world, intelligent people see three things. They see the living beings, they see the world, and they see that there is ultimate control over them. Yes. And that person, intelligent person, in seeing those three things, that person sees that neither the living entity, the living being, nor the world itself are creations of chance. Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the symmetry of creation and its regulative actions and reactions suggests the plan of an intelligent brain behind them. And by genuine inquiry, one may find out the ultimate cause with the help of one who knows them factually. Right, so that's nice. And again, it's the same point that was made before, that Narada wants knowledge of the truth on the basis of cause and effect, not just some speculation which is not grounded in observable reality. So therefore, Prabhupada's saying, of course, he wants to know about how it's working. So that's not known yet. But Prabhupada says that the way things are working, the symmetry of creation and the regulative actions and reactions, our distance from the sun, how the seasons go, how the days go, the years go, all these different things, that Prabhupada says, they suggest the plan. Therefore, it's grounded in cause and effect. It suggests a plan of an intelligent brain. Yeah. Okay, so verse 3. My dear Father, all this is known to you scientifically, because whatever was created in the past, whatever will be created in the future, or whatever's being created at present, as well as everything within the universe, is within your grip, just like a walnut. Yeah. So Brahma, as the creator, or secondary creator actually, but anyway, so as the creator, he knows past, present, and future. So these things, from verse 2, the living beings, the manifest world, and the ultimate control over them, are in continuous action through past, present, and future. And the manager should know their actions and reactions as a person knows a walnut in the hand. You know, I just thought, it's not really mentioned here. It's not mentioned here. But the choice of a walnut is interesting. I don't know if you've shelled walnuts before. It's a bit complicated because, you know, it's not like an almond where, you know, it's just, you know, uniform, sort of cylindrical almost. But a walnut's got all these ins and outs, and it's heavily textured. Yeah, so it's a little complicated, in other words. It's not like a peanut. We've all, I think, shelled peanuts before, haven't we? Or am I alone? No, I think we've all shelled peanuts. It's just very simple. Just pop, off it comes. But a walnut is more, because of all the contours and all that, it's more complicated. But anyway, so Prabhupada's talking about the manager, the manufacturer. The manufacturer must know, one, how he learnt the art of manufacturing, two, where he got the ingredients, three, how he set it up, and four, how the products of the manufacturing process are being turned out, how they're coming out. So Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, because Brahma is the firstborn living being, naturally he's supposed to know everything about the creative functions. Alrighty, so we go on to verse 4. My dear Father, what is the source of your knowledge? Under whose protection are you standing? And under whom are you working? What is your real position? Do you alone create all entities with material elements by your personal energy? So Prabhupada begins the purport by saying, it was known to Sri Narada Muni that Lord Brahma attained creative energy by undergoing severe austerities. As such, he could understand that there was someone else superior to Brahmaji who invested Brahma with the power of creation. And therefore, Narada's asking these questions. You know, it really seems there's someone superior, but he doesn't know. First of all, he doesn't really know if there is, but certainly he doesn't know who it is, assuming there is such a person. Right. So Prabhupada goes into discussing about how scientific discoveries are not independent, that the scientist has to have some knowledge of a thing already existing from someone else. Yeah, or from himself, but if he really doesn't know, then in order to begin his process of trying to know, he needs some existing knowledge. Yeah. So, a brain, someone else's brain. Yeah. He can't make his own brain. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, therefore no one's independent in the matter of creation, nor is such creation automatic. Yeah, it's taken the scientists centuries to come up with whatever understandings they have currently. And therefore, it's a step-by-step thing of building on whatever they've received already. And, maybe finding some of it's wrong, replacing it. But it's not that they're all just starting from square one by any means. Verse 5, as the spider very easily creates the network of its cobweb and manifests its power of creation without being defeated by others, so also you yourself, by employment of your self-sufficient energy, create without any other's help. Yeah, that's true, but you don't see where all the ingredients came from, where his intelligence came from. That you don't see. He's starting off from a certain point which has been reached by previous process, by a previous person. So Prabhupada says, the best example of self-sufficiency is the sun. Doesn't need anything else from anywhere else to illuminate it. Rather, the sun illuminates other illuminating agents, like the moon. The moon shines. We understand, we hear. It's just reflecting the sunlight. Yeah. So Narada Muni gives the example of a spider. It's self-sufficient. It creates its own field of activity with no one else's help by using its own saliva. At least Narada, at least as far as he can see concretely, there's no one else involved. That's because he didn't see what happened before. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, what he did to bring things to the point from which Narada Muni would be able to take over. Lord Brahma would be able to take over. Verse 6, when whatever we can understand by the nomenclature, characteristics and features of a particular thing, superior, inferior, or equal, eternal or temporary, is not created from any source other than that of your lordship, thou so great. So Prabhupada brings out that in this world there's so many things. Some of them are superior, some are inferior, and basically the humans are the highest level. But amongst humans, there are different levels. But even so, Narada knows that none of them have any source of generation other than his father. Yeah. So he wants to know about them. All the different things. Superior, inferior, equal, eternal, temporary, whatever. All these things he wants to know about. So verse 7, yet yet we are moved to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you. When we think of your great austerities in perfect discipline, although your good self is so powerful in the matter of creation. So yeah, anyway, it's interesting. There are no long purports, famous last words. All the purports are relatively short so far. So Prabhupada makes an interesting point. Following in Narada's footsteps, we shouldn't just accept our spiritual master as God or, some sort of independent authority. Yeah. I mentioned to you about that so-called Swami from Mauritius. It was all Vaishnavism, Hare Krishna, different sampradayas and this and that. Yeah. Suddenly, he's an incarnation. Yeah. So, we should be more astute and more careful than that. So, yeah, he is giving information about God, the spiritual master. Just like God, in a sense, Krishna says, surrender to me. The spiritual master says, surrender to Krishna. So there's a type of uniformity, at least, even, a sort of type of equality to some, in a certain sense, but definitely uniformity. But if he claims to be God, then he must be rejected. So Narada had accepted Lord Brahma as the supreme. But then he saw that Brahma was worshipping someone else. And the Supreme has no one superior to him. So this whole worship of oneself, the worship of oneself is called ahangrahopasana. Worshipping yourself with the idea of becoming God, at least. Yeah, it's misleading. And the intelligent disciple understands that God doesn't need to become God. He's always God. He doesn't need to worship himself to become God. Ahangrahopasana means that. Worship yourself in order to become God. So he doesn't need to worship himself to become God because he's already God. So ahangrahopasana may be one of the processes for getting some sort of transcendental realization. Maybe not also, depends. But the ahangrahopasita can never be God. No one can become God. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Narada Muni thought of Brahmaji as the Supreme Person, but when he saw Brahmaji engaged in the process of transcendental realization, doubts arose in him. So he wanted to be clearly informed. And verse 8, the last verse in this section. My dear Father, you know everything, and you are the controller of all. Therefore, may all that I've inquired from you be kindly instructed to me, so that I may be able to understand it as your student. Okay. And there's, again, a really short purport. It's one sentence. So, but the point is, Narada's inquiries, they're not just his inquiries, but they're important for everyone. Yeah. So, he's asking them He's asking these questions so that others in disciplic succession can know them properly without difficulty. All right, so we go on to the second section from verse 9 to verse 20, and it's Brahma. Brahma begins his response to Narada. Yeah. Let's read through the verses. Lord Brahma said, "My dear boy Narada, being merciful to all, including me, you have asked all these questions because I've been inspired to see into the prowess of the almighty personality of Godhead." Verse 10, "Whatever you've spoken about me is not false, because unless and until one is aware of the personality of Godhead, who is the ultimate truth beyond me, one is sure to be illusioned by observing my powerful activities." That's a very important point. Brahma is so powerful that if you don't know anything beyond him, you must conclude, well, he's the source, he's the ultimate. And I said there are no long purports. Anyway, verse 10 has one, and verse 11. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So 11, I create after the Lord's creation by his personal effulgence, known as the Brahmajyoti, just as when the sun manifests its fire, the moon, the firmament, the influential planets, and the twinkling stars also manifest their brightness. Verse 12, I offer my obeisances and meditate upon Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, whose invincible potency influences them, the less intelligent class of men, to call me the supreme controller. 13. The illusory energy of the Lord cannot take precedence, being ashamed of her position. But those who are bewildered by her always talk nonsense, being absorbed in thoughts of, it is I and it is mine. Verse 14. The 5 elementary ingredients of creation, the interaction thereof set up by eternal time, and the intuition or nature of the individual living beings are all differentiated parts and parcels of the personality of Godhead Vasudeva. And in truth, there is no other value in them. That's interesting. That's important. It's really important. Verse 15. The Vedic literatures are made by and are meant for the Supreme Lord. The demigods are also meant for serving the Lord as parts of his body. The different planets are also meant for the sake of the Lord, and different sacrifices are performed just to please him. 16. All different types of meditation or mysticism are means for realizing Narayan. All austerities are aimed at achieving Narayan. Culture of transcendental knowledge is for getting a glimpse of Narayan, and ultimately salvation is entering the kingdom of Narayan. 17. Inspired by him only, I discover what is already created by him, Narayan, under his vision as the all-pervading supersoul, and I also am created by him only. 18. The Supreme Lord is pure spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities. Yet, for the sake of the creation of the material world and its maintenance and annihilation, he accepts through his external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. 19. These three modes of material nature, being further manifested as matter, knowledge, and activities, put the eternally transcendental living entity under conditions of cause and effect, and make him responsible for such activities. And verse 20, last verse in this section, O Brahman Narada, the superseer, the transcendent Lord, is beyond the perception of the material senses of the living entities because of the above-mentioned three modes of nature. But he is the controller of everyone, including me. Means Lord Brahma, but including me too. And if any of us ever think that, doesn't really include me, well, that means we're deep in illusion. Okay, so let us go through with the purports. Verse 9, Lord Brahma said, my dear boy Narada, being merciful to all, including me, you have asked all these questions because I've been inspired to see into the prowess of the Almighty Personality of Godhead. He's got some insight into how the Lord works. So first of all, Prabhupada says, first of all, Lord Brahma congratulates him. Yes, because usually devotees become enthusiastic when they're questioned about the Lord. And that's a good sign. It's the sign of a pure devotee. I've told the story before. I told it a few days ago. When I first joined, moved into the temple on a Sunday morning for the feast. I walked in the middle of the feast, and probably 2, maybe 3 weeks later, it was the Sunday feast, and I got all the nice prasad because the feasts were really nice. And I went to find a quiet corner where I could just, enjoy the prasad. So I sat down in the corner facing out, and I'm just about to go for it when one young man just sits down right in front of me and says, please tell me about Krishna. I want to know. And my immediate response, at least my mind's immediate response, was to say, oh no. But I did. And I didn't know much, but for probably half an hour I told him, and all sorts of inspirations, hopefully not speculations, were coming. And, I had read a certain amount. And after half an hour, we saw that the people were finishing, getting up and going away, taking their plates and all. I had not eaten a thing, absolutely not, nothing. But I felt so inspired. I really felt inspired. Yeah, that was the first time I had that experience. So Prabhupada says, Brahma congratulates Narada, because usually devotees become enthusiastic when they're questioned about the Lord, and it's very true. And that's the sign of a pure devotee. And I tell you what, I was very far from being a pure devotee at that point. but certainly it struck me very deeply. So such discourses on the Lord purify the atmosphere, and the devotees who are answering and the devotees who are being answered, they all become enthused as the process goes on. So therefore it's purifying for the questioner and the answerer. So Prabhupada makes the point, and it's a good point, important point, that the pure devotees are satisfied to know about the Lord, but they're also eager to share, knowledge of the Lord. Right, that was verse 9. But Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, thus the devotee feels satisfied when such an opportunity is offered to him. This is the basic principle of missionary work, missionary activities. All right, so verse 10. Whatever you've spoken about me is not false, because unless and until one is aware of the personality of Godhead, who's the ultimate truth beyond me, one is sure to be illusioned by observing my powerful activities. So there's 3 paragraphs of purport here. Right. Prabhupada mentions the story of the frog in the well. We all know the story of the frog in the well, and how he thought that there's nothing bigger than his well. And he told the other frog who'd seen the ocean that, you can't tell me anything's bigger than my well. But then the other one who'd seen the ocean said, no, the ocean is so much bigger. So the first frog in the well expanded his chest, inhaled, and said, is it this big? Oh, much bigger. He inhaled further. Is it this bigger? Much bigger. He inhaled further and exploded. That was the end of Dr. Frog. So Prabhupada says, similarly, the material scientists also want to challenge the inconceivable potency of the Lord by measuring him with their frog-like brains and their scientific achievements. But at the end, they simply die unsuccessfully, like the frog. As Prabhupada says here, the tiny abdomen of the frog burst, and he died without experience of the actual ocean. So anyway, 2nd paragraph. Sometimes a materially powerful person is accepted as God without people having any knowledge of God. And this practice, Prabhupada says, that this may extend up to Brahma. His one day and night are extremely long, which may not be believed by the frog in the well. But those who have realized the truths in Bhagavad Gita, they can accept this. So it's understood from Shastra that this Brahma is the youngest, really youngest, Prabhupada says, is younger than all the other Brahmas in charge of the many, many universes beyond this. But none of them can be equal to the personality of Godhead. And 3rd paragraph. Narada, Prabhupada mentions how he was the son of a maidservant before, but then he became Narada. So the question may arise, why is he not aware of the Lord? Why did he mistakenly think Brahma was the Lord, even though Brahma was not? Because liberated souls are never bewildered by these things. So why did Narada ask such questions? Yeah. So the same thing, Prabhupada says, the same thing happened to Arjuna. Same thing which is happening to Narada right now happened to Arjuna by the will of the Lord. So the non-liberated people can understand the truth and get knowledge about the Lord. So yeah, it's just the Lord's arrangement. Actually, Narada, of course he knows these things. Yeah. So the doubt in Narada's mind is a lesson, Prabhupada says, for frogs in the for frogs in wells, so they won't be bewildered and misconceiving the identity of the Lord. So we shouldn't be misled when someone worships another person as God after that person who they're saying is God is already dead. And Prabhupada makes the point, interesting point, there were many kings like Lord Ram, but none of them are mentioned as God in the revealed scriptures, generally. Yeah. Okay. We see that Yudhisthira was no less pious a king than Ram, and he was a better moralist, you could say, than Krishna. Krishna asked Yudhisthira to lie, but he wouldn't. That doesn't mean he was equal to Ram or Krishna. Yudhisthira was a pious man, but Ram and Krishna are God, even though he appears to be, in a certain sense, more special than Krishna. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the Lord is therefore a different identity in all circumstances, and no idea of anthropomorphism can be applied to him. The Lord is always the Lord, and a common living being can never be equal to him. So anthropomorphism means thinking that, or elevating a normal human being to the level of God in your mind. Yeah. Verse 11, I create after the Lord's creation by his personal effulgence, known as the Brahmajyoti, just as when the sun manifests its fire, the moon, the firmament, the influential planets and the twinkling stars just as when the sun manifests its fire, all of these things, the moon, etc., stars, they manifest their brightness after the sun manifests it. So Brahma tells, in the purport here, Brahma tells Narada that your idea that he, Narada, is not supreme, it's correct. Some fools think he's the cause of all causes, but Narada really wants to clear this up from Brahma himself. So in other words, then it'll be like the conclusion of the Supreme Court. Brahma's opinion is final. You can't take it further. Let me ask Durga. So Narada is highly qualified, but he's presenting himself as less intelligent. And he is putting forward these not so intelligent questions, not for himself, but so the uninformed can be properly informed. So now there's a second paragraph here. So Brahma is clearing up this wrong impression and affirms that he does the secondary creation. And he confirms this also in Brahma Samhita, verse 40. Yeah. I serve the personality of Godhead Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental bodily effulgence known as the Brahma Jyoti, which is unlimited, unfathomed, and all-pervasive. That Brahma Jyoti is the cause of the creation of unlimited numbers of planets, etc., with varieties of climates and specific conditions of life. Okay, so then paragraph 3. So the same point about the Brahma Jyoti is made in Bhagavad Gita. That, what's that verse? Mayashishtam. Oh, anyway, there's a verse. What is it? 14:26. Oh, it's very difficult for me to look it up. Let me just find that verse. No.
That's 14:26.
And maybe it's the one after that. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Yeah. How does it go? Next one. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Amritas vyavayasya cha. Right. So Brahmano hi pratisht aham. Pratisht, like we do murti pratishta, installation of deities, establishment of deities. So Brahmano hi pratisht aham. So the Brahma Jyoti is situated, established, aham, on me. He, pratishta, he means definitely. Okay. So yeah, the Brahma Jyoti is situated on Lord Krishna, which is the it's the effulgence of his body. It's all pervading, and creation is made possible by its power. Therefore, the Vedic hymns say that the Brahma Jyoti sustains everything. Sarvam kalv idam Brahma. Everything is coming from Brahman. So Prabhupada says, therefore the potential seed of all creation is the Brahma Jyoti. And the same Brahma Jyoti, unlimited and unfathomed, is established by the Lord. Therefore the Lord, Sri Krishna, is ultimately the supreme cause of all creation. Aham sarvasya prabhava. Bhagavad Gita chapter 10 verse 8. So Prabhupada then continues in the 4th paragraph. We shouldn't expect the Lord to be like a blacksmith with a hammer. He has his own potencies, so he can get everything done without himself having to do all the work. Yes, just like the seed of a banyan tree is very small, but it has the potency to create a big tree. So the Lord disseminates all varieties of seeds by the Brahma Jyoti, and they develop by the watering process of people like Brahma. All the different features of the universe, the planets, the species. The Lord disseminates all the seeds for these things by the Brahma Jyoti. But then people like Brahma, they water those seeds, and then you get the manifest creation. Brahma didn't create the seeds, but he can make them become trees by watering them. Like a gardener helps plants and orchards to grow by watering. Yeah. Otherwise, if they don't grow, if they don't get watered, they don't grow. So Brahma's process is to water and get them to develop. So, Prabhupada says the sun is a good example. It's the cause of all illumination. All luminaries in the sky are creations of the sun. But it's created by the Brahma Jyoti. And the Brahma Jyoti comes from the Lord. So therefore the Lord is the ultimate cause of creation. Therefore the potential seed of all creation is the Brahma Jyoti. And the same Brahma Jyoti is established by the Lord. Right. Okay. Verse 12. I offer my obeisances and meditate upon Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, whose invincible potency influences them, the less intelligent class of men, to call me the Supreme Creator. So Prabhupada makes the point that the next verse is going to explain that the less intelligent who are bewildered by external energy, that they accept Brahma to be supreme. But he's refusing to be called that. Yeah. So therefore, he offers his respects to Krishna, just as he did in the verse which we just read from Brahma Samhita, or just as he said in Brahma Samhita verse 1. And the second paragraph, which Prabhupada quotes actually, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Krishna's the supreme controller. So the second paragraph, Brahma knows his own position, and he knows how fools accept anyone as God under the influence of Maya. But he won't accept to be called God. But still, fools are praised, Prabhupada says, by men of the nature of hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. They're praised as if they're God, and when that happens, they feel flattered. Thank you. Very kind of you. So why they take pleasure, why those people who are being claimed to be God take pleasure in being called God, is explained in the next verse. Yes, okay, so let's do it. Verse 13. So Brahma says, the illusory energy of the Lord cannot take precedence, being ashamed of her position. But those who are bewildered by her always talk nonsense, being absorbed in thoughts of, it is I and it is mine. So, Prabhupada begins the purport by saying Maya is so powerful. She can bewilder the whole world, but still she cannot stand in front of the Lord. In the realization, if you remember from the first canto, Vyasadev's realization, he saw the illusory energy standing behind the Lord, out of the way, feeling embarrassed. Feeling embarrassed because she has to bewilder all the conditioned souls. It's not nice. So yes, so Prabhupada says that actually. Nescience is behind the Lord. And it's only there she's powerful enough to mislead the living being. And the primary symptom of such people who think that they're God or accept other people as God, or think that, they think in terms of it is I, it is mine, I, me, and mine. So the primary symptom of such people is that they talk nonsense. Nonsense talk not supported by Vedic literature. And Prabhupada says the first grade of nonsense is it is I, it is mine. First class nonsense. Yeah. So, unfortunately, godless civilization is exclusively conducted by such false ideas. And such people accept false gods, or they declare their God to mislead others. So those who are in that, they're behind the Lord with Maya. Maya's behind the Lord. So those people who are with Maya, they're with Maya behind the Lord. But those who are in front of the Lord, that's the devotees. Those who have surrendered to him, they're not influenced by Maya, so they're free from it is I and it is mine. So therefore, devotees, don't accept any false god and don't pose to be as being equal to him. It's so interesting, this fellow from Mauritius, it was all very Vaishnav, and so many devotees were at least partially and some completely taken in by him, but really a lot partially. But after a while it starts coming out. His followers think he's God. It's classic. It's just absolutely classic, because there's no proper connection. He's not connected. They're connected to him. I mean, he's not connected to Krishna or Parampara or the truth or, the Shakti of the truth. And they're connected to him, so they're not also connected. In fact, their position is even worse. So therefore, they can't grasp the truth, ultimately. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, identification of the bewildered person is distinctly given in this verse. The identification, how to identify, how they can be identified. What is their identity? It's distinctly given in this verse. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.